Attachment. What is attachment? Anyone heard of the term attachment? Maybe you've heard of attachment disorder, right? Well, Kendall and Klaus are the attachment and bonding pediatricians. And they say that it's not just attachment, it's attachment and bonding. Attachment is the behavior of the child to the parent. Bonding is the behavior of the parent to the child. So we spend a lot of time focused on creating attachment, and we don't spend any time focused on creating bonding. I have a video I'm going to show you this afternoon about this lady and her therapist friend or husband, or I don't know what it is, but she's in prison, in jail now. It's the mom who was the YouTuber, who they found out she was starving her kids and duct taping them and making them sleep on the floor, on the bean bags or whatever. Well, guess what? Those are common mental health practices. She's under the light now because her kid, who hadn't had any water, ran to the neighbor's house and asked for water because his mom wasn't giving him any water. I've known mental health professionals for 20 years who've been teaching that shit all over the world. And now we say it's abuse. Well, we don't look at it that way when we're advocating stressed out parents to create more stress for their children because we don't understand. We don't understand. See, it's all rooted in a lack of understanding. You can't create secure attachment by creating stress. I want you to remember that. You can't create an environment of secure attachment by creating stress. It's physiologically impossible. Attachment is the dyadic regulation of emotion. Attachment is the ability of two people to regulate emotion together. They have to regulate. Attachment is not created by a parent stressing out a child who's already stressed out and traumatized. But there's a whole series of books and professionals that teach that very thing. In the most subtle way, it's time out, behavior modification, consequences. These are the most popular things that we do in mental health and parenting. This is my grandson, Ezra. This is the most amazing thing. He's like the most amazing little species. But what was so amazing is that we just got to watch him develop. And of course, I got to watch my own children develop. I had 7 children altogether. I got to watch all of them develop. But this is the first child that I actually got to watch develop from a really conscious place of what's important and what matters and what's going to go into forming a healthy brain and a regulated baby. He's 10 weeks old, 2.5 months old now. You met my mother. This is my wife, Cynthia. This is my daughter, Brooke. I got stories about Brooke. I'll share that this afternoon, probably after she leaves. Brooke's birthday is Sunday. I'm very excited about that. She's going to be 15, even though she looks 5. Don't take her little innocent looks for granted. She'll get you. She's a little sniper. So it's amazing to have gone through this experience of being really conscious of the development of this child and to realize that all of my years of doing this, all of the pain and the sacrifice can go into just being able to share a few little things with his mother that she actually does, and with his grandmother, so she can encourage his mother to create a regulated environment around him. So we can have influence on that, and I can see the impact of that. And you just never, you take all of that for granted. In some instances, your own children, you may not have even had an opportunity to do this. Your own children, you may have been told that they need to lay in a crib. The first thing, Maya wanted a crib. Okay, great. Get a crib. Fine, get a crib. And I'm like, why is she getting a crib? What do you need a crib for? You got a whole big old bed. What do you need a crib for? And I said, well, you just wait till he starts crying in the middle of the night and you're tired and he wants to nurse. We'll see how long in that crib. He's never been in the crib. She took, like the first night that she was home, she took the cushion out of the crib because she was really afraid his dad was going to roll over on him. She took the cushion out of the crib. He's never been in the crib. You know, they're just little things, just like nursing. He can nurse. It's going to be so much better for his brain. It's going to help his development so much better. It's going to create such a stronger attachment and such a stronger bond. Did you know that attachment is the behavior of the child to the parent? Attachment is the behavior of the child to the parent, but bonding is the behavior of the parent to the child. That's why they call it attachment and bonding. The biggest problem in the 90s and the early 2000s, when there was all this focus on attachment, is that they were focused on just one way of the street. Just attachment. Led to a lot of problems. Because if you're only focusing on attachment, then you're trying to get that child to be a certain way. Can you imagine how easily fear sets into that? If I'm trying to get you to do something, I'm already fearful. I'm not influencing you. I'm not guiding you. I'm already influencing you. Because I'm trying to get you to do something, because I've got professionals who've told me that your inability to attach, because of your trauma, we knew that, because of your trauma, because of this child's trauma, they don't trust adults. That was the big thing. You don't need to write that down. I don't want you to remember that because it was wrong. It was wrong. But that was the belief promoted by psychiatrists and psychologists and mental health professionals all around the world. Because of this child's trauma, they don't trust the mother because the mother reminds them of the biological mother. Therefore, they're going to be resistant to you because they don't trust you. So then what happened is you have this whole practice, all these therapies that were geared towards forcing the child out of control because they're in control and you got to break their control. You got to break their will, just like you're training horses or dogs or anything else. That's the perspective. So all these tools and techniques, all these parenting tools and techniques actually were on the same continuum as punishment. You had parents taking their children and locking them in their rooms and taking all their stuff out of their room, locking them in their rooms, literally giving them a pot to piss in under the name of forming attachment and only feeding them bananas or peanut butter and bread until they gave in. I cut my teeth in that era of parenting. And that era of parenting, that was pervasive when I started this work in trauma. Is this model of force. And you don't even think about it because some of this stuff we've been doing so long, like consequences. Consequences, Love and Logic was one of the biggest parenting books that existed for 20, 30 years. All rooted in force. All rooted in fear. All rooted in punishment. We're going to get into this today. And then time out. Let's go to the basic. The basic. Time out. How many times have you heard about time out? And from time out, there was 1, 2, 3 magic. All the same things, it's just a different name. And all that really goes right back to when we were in the first grade. When you got in trouble, you had to put your nose in the corner. It's no different than having to put your nose in the corner, which when you turn 20 is no different than putting you in jail. Which when you do something really bad is no different than putting you in prison. It's on the same continuum. But because we don't think about what we do, because we parent from the matrix, which is that ingrained set of cultural and traditional beliefs, we just do the same thing over and over and we never question. We never question why I just did timeout, why I'm doing timeout at 5 minutes when he's 5 years old, and then at 10, I'm sending him to his room all day long. We never question it. We just do the same thing. So you don't do timeout, you do time in. And let me tell you why. You do time in because children don't act out for attention, because that's what you've all heard. Children act out for attention. Children don't act out for attention. Children act out because they need attention. Because they've exceeded their window of tolerance for how much stress they can handle. And when you've exceeded your window of tolerance, because we all have a window of tolerance, when you exceed that, you can't tolerate any more stress. Which means you can't tolerate any more sensory input, which means you can't tolerate seeing anything more, smelling anything more, hearing anything more, being touched, tasting anything more. You can't handle any more sensory input. And when you do, you start to act crazy, which means negative behaviors. So the problem with the field of attachment is that it was only focused on attachment. And the helplessness of the therapist that mirrored the helplessness of the parents just created more fear and control. Still happens today. It still happens today. When the fear of the parent who feels overwhelmed goes to the therapist and the therapist gets scared and overwhelmed, and then all we do is revert back to fear and control. Because that's what the parenting matrix has conditioned you for. The parenting matrix has conditioned you for control, suppressing, and changing behaviors. The parenting matrix is all focused on behaviors. And that's rooted in your brain. So not only is the matrix focused on behaviors, but your amygdala, your fear receptor in your brain, your limbic system is also focused on behaviors. So now you have that repetition. And your limbic system is connected to your survival. So that's how serious this gets. I mean, that's how intense it gets. Negative behaviors, which your amygdala focuses on, is connected to your very survival. That's why, as adults, we can act so crazy when our children are misbehaving. Because it becomes life or death. It becomes life or death. So the attachment field forgot about, and I do this all the time. I'll start talking about something, then I'll jump to these. I usually always circle back. The attachment field forgot about bonding. The attachment field forgot about all the stressed out parents raising the stressed out kids. And then because they forgot about the bonding, which is the behavior of the parent to the child, they forgot that a stressed out parent cannot create a calm child. A dysregulated parent is a term we'll talk about today, cannot regulate a dysregulated child. And so as helplessness and fear set in, we became more controlling in our practices, which means we just create more stress and more tragic things happen to kids, especially during the 90s and early 2000s. It eventually, what's the word when it reaches the peak? Not accumulated, there's a different word. But no, what was that? Climax. It eventually climaxed to the point of a little girl was murdered in an attachment therapy session. And then attachment therapy practices really became scrutinized. And then after that way of practicing started to die off. So it was intense. It was intense. And I grew up in that. I grew up in that as a clinician. I grew up in that. So when my paradigm changed, I could so clearly see how that practice was rooted in fear.